Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. From Shaw Local, I am Michael Dwojak here with Joe Aguilar as we get you ready here for week 7 of the football season. We're talking to you on Friday afternoon, a little bit of a different time, but hopefully we're getting your weekend started here with the Bears preview as they play the Saints on Sunday afternoon at noon, Joe, at Soldier Field. And we got a noon game after all these different 3 p.m. starts, Monday night, all that sort of stuff. We've only had one noon game so far on Sunday, so it'll be good to kind of get back to that normal schedule on Sunday.
Yeah, good old Bears football. You know how I love the noon kickoffs, Michael, like Walter Payton and the Super Bowl 20 Bears. It's just old school Bears, and hopefully they play like the Super Bowl 20 champion Bears and get another W on Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure everyone's looking forward to that. Thanks so much to everyone who's joining us. Thanks so much on the YouTube stream. Thanks for joining us. If you don't mind, give us a like. That's the best way to support us, help grow our brand. If you're listening on the podcast and want to be part of the conversation, make sure you check out our social medias. We usually like to do Friday and Monday morning, but if we have to change, obviously make sure you check out our social medias. We'll always get you up to date on those, when we're going to be going live. But let's look forward to this game happening at noon, Joe. And since we're recording this on Friday afternoon, we have the luxury of, having the full injury report for Friday. So Cairo Santos and Noah Sewell are both out for Sunday's game. Grady Jarrett returned in a limited fashion. DeAndre Swift was limited again. Austin Booker, Travis Homer, and Amen Ogamiga were all full, and they'll all be questionable for Sunday's game. We got a chance to talk to DeAndre after the injury report was released. He said he expects to play on Sunday. Nothing to really be concerned about. And then DJ Moore and Jonah Jackson, they were both full participants, and they had no designation. Earlier in the day, Ben Johnson said, they'll see how the injury report looks when it comes to determining whether DJ Moore plays. But Joe, I mean, for the most part, this is a pretty good injury report. Obviously, the Cairo
Yep.
Santos isn't great, but I do think that where things were on Wednesday, you have to be pretty encouraged about where things stand at this point.
Yeah, and it's nice to know that Jake Moody can do the job, right? Which we didn't know a week ago. A lot of people probably didn't know he was on the practice squad. But so I'm not as concerned about that. Now, that would be interesting if the weather's a little nasty. It might rain, I think, Sunday potentially. We'll see what
Yeah,
kind
it's
of weather.
gonna
It's not
it's
going to be
gonna
as
rain.
bad as it was.
It's going to rain and it's going to be windy, so it's definitely not going to
Yeah,
be not going to be good. Especially, I feel like it's always windy at Soldier Field, regardless on a beautiful day.
sure.
So I'm sure it'll be extra hard. I think they're calling for like gusts to be like up to like 40 miles an hour, or something like that, 30 miles an hour once kickoff happens at noon.
Yeah, that could be a factor then. I mean, I don't know if it'll be as nasty as it was Monday night in DC. You were there. So, but kicking at Soldier Field, like you said, even if it's a nice day and it's 70 and sunny, there's wind and it's tough to kick there. So it'll be interesting to see how Jake does um, in those conditions at Soldier Field, because he's probably going to get opportunities again with this offense, sometimes getting stagnant inside the 30s. So we'll see there. And then Noah Sewell, who we haven't talked a lot about this season, he's been pretty solid, pretty steady his first year as a starter. And so they'll miss him. And, still no Jalen Johnson. That's the big one, but we'll see if we get him back at all this season. So, but overall, yeah, pretty good. And I saw they also just released Tano Passigno. Did I get his name right? He's significant because I think he's got one of the few Bears sacks this season. So I don't know if that opens a window for my guy Austin Booker here. We'll see. We'll see if he even is active, and if he's active, does he play? And if he plays, is he any good? But I'm kind of curious to see what happens there, and we'll talk more about this defensive line here as we go along here. So, but overall, like you said, pretty good, all things considering, with the injuries.
Yeah, I think that's good detective work on your part, Joe. Obviously, Tano got that sack earlier. I would imagine, considering Austin's been a full participant in practice for the past 2 weeks, ever since they opened up his practice window. I would assume at this point that that's likely to give Austin Booker a chance to get back on there. But we'll obviously see what that kind of looks like on Sunday. Joe, we'll get into the preview here. It's something I want to talk about. I feel like the other big story of the week was I don't know how much it was a story of the week. This whole Troy Aikman thing with Caleb Williams. I don't know how much time you want to spend on it. I don't know what your thoughts are about this, but obviously, Caleb talked about it on Wednesday. He said, he posted on Instagram. Part of his caption included a quote where, Troy Aikman called that 55-yard touchdown pass to DeAndre Swift lucky. It's funny because part of it was kind of lucky because Caleb said that the play wasn't going the way it was supposed to, but obviously it worked out. But you care about that at all? Like, do you bring any credence to that, or is that just kind of like fans kind of being fans and you're not really too worried about, I've seen people start comparing Troy Aikman's stance to Caleb Williams' stance and be like, well, they're like, Caleb is so much bigger. It's like, well, it was a different league back then. Like, it wasn't a pass-heavy league back when Troy Aikman played. Like, I feel like we were really jumping at things when it came to this one.
Yeah, I think it's more fans being fans. And look, I've said this, kind of like, being a writer, being a fan. The beat writers, whether it's you and the other guys on the Bears beat or guys who cover the Cubs or the Blackhawks every day, it's tough to come up with material every single day. It really is. So, if it's out there, you're going to write about it. And I don't blame you. I'd be writing about it too, if I were you, or if I were one of the other guys, but I didn't have a problem with Troy. I guess it's just noise to me anyway, literally, in this case, but the pass it was, that wasn't designed to go 55 yards for a touchdown. And, but that's football. Did Washington make a bad play? They were pursued. Yeah. But, there's a dozen of those plays every game where a guy did something stupid and he knows it, but it happened and it cost you a game, or maybe it didn't cost you, but it cost you a drive. So I don't know. And look, we talked about it the other day. Caleb wasn't great. I don't have a problem with Troy, but again, the national media in general seems to have it on for this guy still. He's, again, I heard ESPN guys talking this week about how Drake might be the best quarterback in this class. Never mind Jaden Daniels. And I just hope all those quarterbacks turn out to be pretty good. So far, a lot of them are off to great starts in their careers. So, but this is going to be the noise that comes with being the first overall pick. And it's interesting because now that he's facing another quarterback from that draft on Sunday, a guy who went later, in the fourth, fifth round, Spencer Rattler. But we'll see. But to me, it was much ado about nothing.
He's a guy that obviously, Caleb was battling for that at Oklahoma before he transferred to USC
right.
too. Caleb was asked about Spencer. They haven't really kept in touch or anything like that. But Spencer can play. He can sling it. He can run it, and maybe he'll be one of our matchups that we're looking forward to. So, Joe, let's move on over. Obviously, noon kickoff on Fox. We talked about that. What's your what matchup are you looking at here when the Bears host the Saints on Sunday?
Well, I really want to see Kelvin Banks, their left tackle, who all reports are, and what you hear are saying that he's off to a good start. Now, he's the kid the big offensive tackle who went ninth right before the Bears took Colston Loveland. And he's played well, Banks. And I don't know, you might have more knowledge on this than me, but, the question is, and it's, it's kind of moot at this point anyway, but had he been there at 10, would the Bears have taken him? He's looking pretty good there. Bears still are having issues with their left tackle spot, as we've gone over ad nauseum really since, the summer. So I want to see that because the pass rush to me was a little better last week, but still not getting enough pressure and not getting the big sack, the big 10-yard one. Maybe at the end of the second one sack they had against the other day, where Jervon Dexter got in there in the backfield. I think it was with maybe Dominique Robinson. I forgot. That was a little bigger yardage sack, I believe. But I want to see some more big, like where you drop them 8-10 yards behind the line of scrimmage, the quarterback, whoever they're playing. So I want to see more of that. And then let's see how good the Banks kid is. I don't expect him to struggle against the Bears defensive front, but I'm curious to see that battle and just kind of get a good look at him playing a professional football game.
Yeah, I think you're going to be. It's going to be interesting to see, how much pressure are you able to put on Rattler, and how much is your run defense going to be able to stop. Dennis Allen kind of mixed some guys up like we talked about on Tuesday,
Mhm.
where he had Shamar Turner go off to the edge, he had Dio go inside, he got a lot of different looks and a lot of different guys involved, and I think you're going to see more of that here, especially if Grady does play. I'm sure it'll be more at a limited role, but obviously if you get Austin Booker in there, are there instances where you have Dio Dangbo inside with maybe Jervon Dexter, and then you have Sweat and Booker out there? Like I think there are a lot of different combinations that you can put out there to kind of pressure Rattler and stop that run defense. So yeah, I think that'll be really interesting just to see whether that pass attack, pass defense, that rush defense can you know, kind of continue off the momentum they had. Again, like we talked about, Jaden Daniels is a tough quarterback to stop. So, I actually did feel like they did actually a pretty good job of stopping him, given what Jaden Daniels is. But I agree that's going to be a big matchup, especially if you are going against Banks and that side. I think you have a really good opportunity to kind of keep this. Keep this pass rush kind of moving the way it did earlier against the Commanders. All right, Joe, my big matchup is this running game going to keep on moving the way it has? And if it rains the way it's supposed to be forecasted and it's as windy as it is, like you're going to have to run the ball, which will be really big. It's encouraging to hear that DeAndre Swift's going to likely play. It felt like more like a maintenance thing for his groin as opposed to actual a concern. So it'll be interesting to see. It was interesting today. Ben was asked about Roshan Johnson and whether he impressed with that one carry that he had for 6 yards. And Ben, kind of answered in an interesting way where he was kind of like, well, Roshan does a lot for us on special teams. So it's kind of hard to like find him snaps, especially with all the mouths that they have at the running back position, which, I thought was an interesting thing to say because you obviously have DeAndre Swift. You obviously have, Kyle Monungai. But then does that mean that Travis Homer's coming back? Does that mean that you're more interested in DJ Moore and, Olamide Zacchaeus, like running the ball? Like that was kind of interesting to me. Just kind of, Roshan Johnson is obviously a running back, but then you got two guys who aren't running backs who have more rushes than him. So I am really interested to see what this running attack looks like and whether, Darnell Wright and Theo Benedict can continue to kind of set the outside like they did before, whether there are any differences based on the defense that, because the Saints run a 3-4 defense as opposed to what the Commanders run. So it'll be really interesting to see, can that run attack continue? And is it only DeAndre Swift, or do we see more out of Kyle Monungai? Do we see more DJ Moore? Do we not, because of the injury and all this sort of stuff? I'm really interested to see what this running attack is able to do, especially given the circumstances of the weather on Sunday.
Yeah, no, great point. And I too want to see what they do with the running game after that really breakout game offensively for them running the football. I don't expect DeAndre Swift to run for 108 yards every game, but I'd like to see more of it. I don't think it's going to be like, okay, we showed everyone we can run the football. We'll get back to what we were doing before. No, you got to keep doing that for the rest of the season, every game. So I want to see them if they can continue that. It's good that Swift is healthy because, man, if he's not healthy, I don't have any confidence in Roshan Johnson and Kyle Monungai, teaming up to rush for 140 yards or anything close to that. So I think Roshan Johnson is what he is. He's a special teams guy. If he's your number 2 guy, you're probably looking to upgrade, which I thought they were going to basically do in the offseason, and they really didn't until they took Monungai. And, anything you get to me out of a 7th-round pick is gravy. But he seems to be clearly the number 2 guy, the complimentary guy for Swift. And Travis Homer's a special teams guy. That's all he is. So I don't love Roshan Johnson. I like him as a special teams guy. Maybe give him the ball in the short. I don't even like giving it. I'm just going to be honest. I don't like even giving it to him when third and a yard or fourth and a half a yard. We put Roshan back there. I don't have a lot of confidence in that. I mean, he did okay last year in that role. Last year, he was kind of their go-to guy on the goal line, whatever, when they needed a short yard, or in a short yard situation. But I don't know. I just want to see more DeAndre Swift, what he did, get him some space. The offensive line coming off a real good game, probably their best game, right? Certainly pass rush, but there seem to be lanes there for Swift, and that's what you need to get him outside, get him in space, make him make that play on the 55-yard touchdown pass where he makes one little move and Washington guys over pursue and bang, there he goes. The other 40 yards to cap it off. And, they got a real pivotal touchdown there. So let's see more of the running game. And you're right. I mean, with the conditions potentially on Sunday, if it's going to be similar to what they were Monday night in Landover, you got to run the football. And Caleb, you got a good story today that ran in Shaw. Just noting, maybe we can get into Caleb a little later. I don't want to speak too much now, I guess, but about his passing efficiency still isn't what they wanted it to be, about how they wanted it, about 70%. And they talked about that, I remember, and it really hasn't been there. And you think, like 70%, there should be enough easy throws to hike that percentage. And we just haven't seen it enough, which, just the eye test would say, yeah, that's right. I don't think it doesn't look the eye test that he's been throwing at a 70% clip or close to that. He really hasn't. It's really been about 60.2 or 3, whatever you had in the story today.
Yeah, and I think, Declan Doyle kind of made it a point and kind of talked about it where, he's still not, the checkdowns are still not there. The short passes are still not there. They're working on his technique. They're working on him going through his progressions. And I think that's the most important thing, because especially in a game like this where it is going to rain, it is going to, whatever the circumstances are, even if it isn't raining as heavy, I don't remember whether Soldier Field has a tarp on, but it's going to be raining all of Saturday evening, Saturday night, Sunday morning. That field is going to take a lot of rain. So it's going to be sloppy if it's not, being covered at all. So it'll be interesting to see, if you're running the ball, you can open up the run a little bit too by, doing those short 5-yard passes, those 7-yard passes. You don't have to air it out against 30-mile-an-hour winds. You've got playmakers who you can just dump it to, and they'll pick up a bunch of yaks, right? Or yard after carry. So, I agree. I think Declan made a good point of the completions are going to go up if you make the easy throws and if you complete those. Those haven't been what Caleb has done so far. Obviously that's something that they're going to work on and try to hopefully improve on. But that's also an interesting aspect just to look at. Can they dump it off to Zacchaeus? Can they dump it off to Luther Burden? DJ Murphy's in there. Even Rome, I think. For how much Rome is your prototypical ex-receiver, right? He's a big-bodied guy. He can fight for 50-50 balls and that sort of stuff. He's also, really talented. And, if you, get him the ball really in short field, he can do something with that with proper blocking. He's not as, maybe they'd give me a hard time. Maybe he's not as shifty as, as Luther or as DJ, but he can still do that. So I think, and I think Ben will probably find a way to kind of use him in those short yard situations if that's what they need him to do.
I hope so. And you talked about, and Declan Doyle talking about how the short passes will get that percentage up, the easier throw. That'll also help your yards, period. I mean, we see how many times even it happened against Washington, the short little drop, a short pass, and that turns into 5, 7, 10, 15 yards. I mean, you take that from a run. I mean, if you're going to average 5 yards a play throughout the course of the game, you're going to win a lot of football games. I know it's not the sexy 30-yard missile across the field to a wide open guy. We all want to see that. But just some of those little throws, man, they turn into big gainers. And I've said it since the summer, get the ball in the hands of these playmakers. They have a lot. I mean, I've seen a lot of Bears football over the decades. They have a lot of guys who can make plays. And, Luther Burden again against Washington, give him a little, give him the ball, man, because he makes plays when he has the football in his hands. I just want to see more of that guy. We talked about, the depth and stuff. You can't get the ball to everybody. I want to see more of that guy, and it'd be fun to see him have a big, big game on Sunday. I'm not sure if that's going to be my bear to watch. I'm still trying to figure that out as we roll along here, Mike. Keeps changing in my mind as we talk, but for sure it doesn't. And if it's really windy, we'll see how windy it is, because sometimes we hear these forecasts and come kickoff, the sun is out and it's not this bad. We'll see what it's like come noon Sunday at Soldier Field.
All right, Joe, what is your surprise prediction for Sunday afternoon?
Well, I would love to say, hey, man, they're going to win by 25. Easy game here. They finally get an easy win. I guess the surprise, it's going to be a close game. I'm almost well, I should have given away my MVP guy, or I just think it's going to be a closer game than we want. We so much want the Dallas game again, even better than that, right? You're playing a 1-win football team. But here again, like last night, this is why, again, I've told you this. This is why I don't bet, because there's no way I had the Bengals beating the Steelers last night. And son of a gun, that's what happens. Joe Flacco, he's older than me, and he gets the job done again. I don't get it. I don't get this league is tough to figure out. So it's weird to talk about Bears playing a trap game for them, because they're normally one of the bad teams, and there's no such thing. If you're a bad team, there's no trap game. You're expected to lose every week. So I don't know. I'm afraid it just might be another Jake Moody game at the end. I guess that's my surprise prediction.
Yeah, I forget what the line. I think the line is at 5.5, or it's somewhere around that. But I think this has the potential for it to be a trap game. But I think the Bears are not going to let it be a trap game. Like, I feel like they've been asked a million times at this point whether this is going to be a trap game, and it's interesting because, we were talking a little bit, in the media room here. And this is the first time the Bears are favored in a game since last year against the Patriots. Like, that's almost a year ago. Like, so it's funny because I don't think the Bears are in a position to have a trap game, right? Like, it's based on what happened last season, based on what is going on so far through the first, 6 weeks of the season here. Yeah, I understand that you can fall into the lull of, like, it's a 1-5 team. Maybe they're not as talented, but they still got a bunch of talented guys on there. I mean, Kamara's on there. Olave's there. They've got a lot of great defenders as well. I think Chase Young is on there too. So they've got a lot of talented players. It just isn't maybe as whole of a team as you want it to be. But yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be a closer game. I think, I know Caleb says this every time. It seems like he says this every single time he sees us. He wants to win by 30 points. But based on the forecast and weather, yeah, I would agree with you. I think that would be one of a closer game than we're usually used to. My surprise prediction is, it probably wouldn't be a surprise prediction to say that this defense is going to force more turnovers. Okay. I think Caleb airs it out a little bit here. Even with the weather forecast, I don't think he's throwing 40-yard bombs. I don't think it's going to be stuff like that. But I think he'll consistently pick up 10-yard completions, 15-yard completions, because I think the Bears will do a good job of setting up the run, and I think that kind of opens things up. And I think that if there's a sloppy track out there too, I think that lets playmakers like Luther Burden, like DJ Moore, like Olamide, to kind of, catch a step on some defenders. And, the thing about the Saints secondary is that, the front, I think the front line is pretty good. The secondary has given up a lot of big plays so far this year. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if you drop it off to, for a 5 or 10-yard pass, and then you get another 10 yards on the yak or something like that. So that's going to be my surprise prediction. I'm not saying that Caleb is going to, toss it out for like 40-yard, 50-yard passes. I don't think we're going to see too many Hail Marys, but I do think that at the end of the day, you'll see a lot of passing yards just based on those short passes and what his playmakers are able to do with the ball after they get the ball.
Yeah, great point. You look at the Saints in general, they have one win. Like, why do they stink? And then you look at Spencer Rattler's numbers; they're really not bad. I mean, his numbers are pretty decent.
Not bad at all.
Alvin Kamara is a proven running back in the league, and then now he's saying, I hear he wants to stay in New Orleans. I mean, he's a good player, right? So they got some weapons there. So why do they stink, even though they're at the bottom of the league or close to the bottom in offense, defense, you name it? You figure we only have one win through 6 weeks. And maybe it's that. It's just, they're giving up some big plays there. The weather, again, is going to be real important here. I mean, if it's really nasty, let's hope it's not that nasty where it's just coming down in buckets and it's windy, because that affects everything, right? I mean, a lot of what you're saying, about what I'm saying, it's like, well, we didn't know that was going to be the case weather-wise, because that's the big X factor here. But that'd be nice to see. I just like to see this team assert itself. Like, hey, these three wins in a row. I know the last two were right. It came down to the last play of the game. it matters. I mean, and we got wins and we're rolling, and now we're going to beat a team on our field and beat them convincingly. It doesn't have to be by 30, but a nice double-digit win here by 15 would be, showing that we're coming. The Bears are real. And let the talk come Monday morning, nationally, locally, be are they a playoff contender? Make that be the case here. Let's not have a Jake Moody 40-yarder at the end to win it again. Because I don't know how many more of these I can take. I mean, certainly not 3 in a row. It's that's tough to watch. It's tough as a fan, right?
Yeah, for sure.
For reporters too, you're trying to come up with your story ideas, and it's coming down to the last second of the game. So, but that'd be nice to see if they could exploit this secondary of New Orleans.
All right, Joe, we're going to move on to our most valuable Bears. I had DeAndre Swift last week, and I think you had – who did you have last week? You had you had a Rome, right, or a wide receiver?
I think you had DJ.
Oh, you had DJ, yeah.
DJ got off to a good start, then he got hurt a little bit, and it didn't go to him as much. But
yeah. I ended up with more fantasy points. Obviously, DeAndre had a season-high day. He had that 55-yard touchdown pass. So I win there. I am up 4-1 on the season. I'm running away with this thing so far, but obviously, Joe, you still have there's still 12 or 13 games to go, so I'm not going to start showboating this early. So I think I chose first last week. So who are you selecting as your most valuable Bear on Sunday?
These are always so hard. My initial thinking was it's going to be closer than I thought. So Jake Moody, but I don't know if I could trust him yet. If it's going to be this weather, the Soldier Field weather,
I like that.
I'm going to go with Jake. I'm going to go Jake. I should have played him last week, but we didn't know he was playing last week. We didn't find out until the day before the game that he was going to be kicking. I'm going to go with Jake Moody. I got to see more from this offense where they can use the dagger here to put away a good team. So maybe it comes down to another 4 field goal day for Jake Moody. I'm hoping I'm wrong, Michael, and typically I'm wrong, so that's okay. But I'm going to go with Jake Moody, a weird one.
Yeah, that I don't think we've ever chosen a kicker on these, but I like it. I like it, especially with the sloppiness of the field and what we kind of expect the weather conditions to be. I like the outside thinking. I don't know if I'll go with DeAndre again. I'm not going to use my second Caleb pick just because they could run the ball all day, and I don't really feel like wasting my quarterback pick on that one. Since you're going with Moody, I think I'll go with Luther Burden. I think that this feels like a game where you can get Luther involved, and it seems like that's kind of been a point for Ben. I think the thing that we're going to see here is I don't think a lot of Bears receivers are going to finish over 100 receiving yards. I think that maybe they clear to me that I feel like the only way you're going to get to above 100 is going to be if you get like a big play and then you get like another like 20-yarder like Luther did when he got over 100. Like he had the Hail Mary and then he had another like 20-yard catch. But it seems to me that Ben wants to use all his playmakers and he wants to give everyone the ball. He's not just going to focus on one guy. I'm sure if there's like a mismatch, he'll pick on that for sure, I think. But I think it's become clear that he's going to move the ball around a lot here. So I think Luther Burden gives him a really good opportunity to, whether it's screen passes, whether it's short 5-yard passes. I think Luther really gives him a good opportunity to kind of pick up a bunch of yards on short passes and really gives, defenses a hard time because I think defenses have kind of struggled, when Luther Burden has been called upon. Like he has, even that Commander's pass that he caught for 30 yards. I think he had another 10 yards or 5 yards just based on his moves and that sort of stuff. So, I'm going to go with Luther. I think that this feels like a game where you can get him involved in the short game, and he can kind of pick up a bunch of yards, especially if he's got guys slipping on a bad turf.
Yeah, well, I've been waiting for it all year with him. Again, you know where I stand. I'm a fan, and I wasn't a fan of the pick when they picked him high in the second round. But now that I've seen him enough, get him the football. Colston Loveland, I guess he's still on the team. I'm waiting for that breakout too. But a breakout game for him at this point would be 3 pass receptions. That's and that's not going to be enough to be like he was the MVP of the game for us, unless it was the game winner or something. But someday, I hope, I hope we're talking not necessarily next week or down the road here as we get to November and December, where we're considering Colston Loveland, man, we might have to burn that Colston Loveland card as MVP for the upcoming game here, because I just need to see more of it where he's becoming a fixture, but we haven't. But I'll take Luther Burden more involved. Absolutely. So that would be fantastic, because I want to see him have the 7 reception game, 2 TD game, where we can really see why they picked him and why they thought they got a steal there early in the second.
CJ chiming in. Hey, CJ, good to hear from you. His most valuable is going to be Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland.
Okay.
Bears playing game plan tight end open this week. I can see that. This feels – I think that the Saints can pressure the quarterback, but I think that maybe Ben Johnson would be comfortable enough with the offensive line only doing it. I don't think he needs to give them too much support against the Saints pass rush. Maybe he will, depending on the matchups he sees out there. But this does feel like a game where you can get either Cole or Colston involved, especially if you want to do those dump offs and that sort of stuff. So I like that pick, CJ. I think that either Cole or Colston can kind of take advantage of some mismatches here, especially if the secondary is focused on Rome, DJ, Luther, and that sort of stuff. I can see them picking on some linebackers here.
Hope you're right, CJ. Hope you're right. I saw a video this week on social media. It had to be from the Colts, doing a mock draft room where when the Bears picked Loveland at 10, they all they didn't draft our guy Tyler. He's gonna fall. It's already become a little bit of a joke here. I mean, it's only one video someone did, but people are aware. Get the football.
Yeah, I think you definitely want to get him. I think he's been, it's been tough, obviously, with the injury stuff over the offseason. Then he's got the hip injury. He hasn't had I don't feel like he's been in the best opportunity yet. So we'll see if he's able to do that. All right, Joe, any lasting thoughts before Sunday? I guess, I'll ask you the question, is this as much of a must-win game as a game in Week 7 could potentially be for this team? Obviously, your season's not decided on what happens here on Sunday, but if you take care of business on Sunday, you go to 4-2, and then you head into a good stretch here where you play the Ravens against likely Lamar Jackson at Baltimore. That's not a great matchup, but you have the potential to play the Bengals with Joe Flacco again. Maybe you have a couple weeks to kind of get ready for him. And then you have the New York Giants, where the next 4 weeks aren't easy by any means. It's every week in the NFL, but I do think you have a really good opportunity here where you can make some hay, build up that record, and maybe you can win 3 out of your next 4. Even if you go 2-2, I feel like you feel pretty good. And you are just kind of chugging along here before you kind of get into that harder part where you play the Vikings and the Eagles and the Packers and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're where the Bears are as a franchise right now, every win is big. And this is a game that even before the season started, when you're circling W, W, L, 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 a lot more L's than W's. This is the W. This was a W, Saints home W. They can't lose this game going into any stretch. This is a game you have to win, because every win is important. And you look back at this 3-2 so far, 5 games, the Vikings game, that one got away. Should have beat them. You played decent fourth quarter. Yeah, you win the game. Detroit, nightmare. Hopefully that's the worst loss ever in Ben Johnson's tenure, if he's here 10 years as head coach of the Bears. You get that stinker out of the way. And now you've got these wins here. The good game against Dallas. You get the Josh Blackwell blocked field goal at the end to beat the Raiders. Now you get the Jake Moody game against Washington. Now you got the Saints. That's a team you have to beat. And if it's 23-22 and they win it on a Jake Moody, chip shot field goal, so be it. And no style points, just get the W's, because you don't want to be going into this stretch. Imagine if they lose, Michael, Sunday, because if they lose, whether it's a close game or they lose by double digits, they're going to get a lot of heat. They're pretenders, all this talk. So they can do themselves a big favor by just beating the Saints, a team they should beat come Sunday.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what happens, but this really feels like a game where you just need to take care of business. And it seems like that's been the mentality here at Hallis all week. The mentality has kind of pretty much just been, we're not taking them lightly. We're not looking at that 1-5 record and, being like, we're going to roll over this team. I don't think the Bears are in a spot right now as a franchise to be a team that thinks that they're going to roll over teams. I mean, that's just not who they are. I mean, last year you went into that Patriots game the last time you were favored and you're like, oh, they should take care of business. It's Caleb Williams against Drake May. And then you saw what happened. It was like an ugly loss and that got, Shane Waldron fired. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the mentality is there. The weather, we'll see what that's going to look like. But I think this feels like a game that the Bears know what's at stake here. They know that they need to take care of business. And I think you'll see that on Sunday. Maybe an act of God is going to change something. But I do think for the most part, yes, you would like a blowout game. Maybe it won't come exactly like that. Maybe it will. I don't know. But I do think that the Bears should take care of business. And they seem like ready for that.
Yeah, and I think it's a big game again for Ben Johnson as he goes through this year one. It's going to be a lot of firsts, right? First game now for him, coming off a win and going into a potential, if you want to call it the trap game, how his team responds. Because if they lay an egg here Sunday, you know what everyone's going to say? They weren't prepared. Then who takes the blame for that? The head coach. They weren't prepared. He'll say the first guy, we were on coach. They beat us in all three phases, and including we got to coach better. I got to be better. He'll own it because that's the way it works in sports, right? You lose a game that you should win, and it comes down. Well, the coach didn't have him prepared, and I have seen very little from Ben Johnson this year that suggests they got it wrong. I've been encouraged with what we've seen, probably 90% of it. It just, better than me. It looks different. It sounds different. They look different as a football team. So I'm pretty confident that they will be ready come Sunday. They will win, but that's why we play the games, because every week, like last night, how does that happen? How do they lose to that team? Hopefully we're not saying that in regards to the Bears Saints come Sunday.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, Ben was asked about, how do you handle being a favorite? Like, do you approach it differently and all that sort of stuff? And, he made the point to bring out, like, this is like the last time the Bears came out of a short week, and that was obviously the season opener against the Vikings. And then they had a short week. They got blown out by the Lions, right? Like, even if he's like looking at a different opponent, he's looking at like, is our process better? Like, he's looking at like, are we handling a shorter week better than we did in the past? Like, I think that's the biggest thing that you're seeing a lot with Ben this year is he's looking at growth at different points of this year, right? And this is another point where, sure, obviously the Saints are not what the Lions are, but it can be easy to, fall into the malaise of they won an emotional Monday night game. They got home late Tuesday morning. They only had 2 practices on Thursday and Friday. It's going to be rainy, right? Like, I think he's really interested to see how this team responds to adversity, because this is a short week. This is not an easy situation, even if you are playing at home. So, I would agree. I think it'll be really interesting to see how this team responds and how they respond in a game that many are expecting them to put up a big performance.
Yeah, and this whole arc of winning, the Bears are so, on the scale of, okay, you got to do this to get to that level and that level. And then when you're really good, you win a playoff game. And they're still way at the bottom here. They're still figuring this out and growing. And I know time will go quickly and you don't get 5 years to figure it out. But this is an important stretch for them, handling different situations, whether it's a home game, it's a road game, it's a short week, it's a bye week, all this stuff, game we're favored in. They got to learn to expect victory every week. And when when the culture's been losing, you expect bad, it gets on your skin a little bit after a while. It kind of seeps into you. So it is part of the process. And I will just say at the end here and close, in Ben Johnson, I trust. And I think Bears fans will be happy come about 3:30 on Sunday.
Joe, I almost forgot the most important part of this podcast, predictions. What is your prediction for Sunday afternoon?
Well, I will take the Bears. I already committed to Jake Moody making podcasts.
He did.
our podcast, insider podcast history by taking a kicker. I don't know why he did that in retrospect, but it's already out there, so I'll stick with it. So I guess it's got to be close for me, and I'll say I'll go 28-27. I don't even know how that adds up with field goals and extra points and all that stuff. I'll go 28-27 Bears. It can't be 25-24 again, right? For the third game in a row.
That has to be, I know it's not exactly scoregami, but that has to be some version of scoregami, right? Like where you got 3 straight games. Like this is 2 straight games where you had 25-24. I am kind of the same mindset with you. 28 points seems like a lot, honestly, if there's like that rainstorm. But I do think that it'll be a closer game. I think the Bears win 21-17. Okay. There you go. CJ's got my prediction, 21-17. He's posted it exactly as I said it. It just feels like a game where I think they win. I think there's a lot of good stuff. I think the forecast just gets in the way. It's one of those ugly games where you're just I know we want to see the Bears win a game where they just kind of dominate, kind of like they did against the Cowboys. I think maybe if you had perfect conditions or near perfect conditions for mid-October on Sunday, you might see that. I think this, just based on what we know about the Soldier Field turf and all that sort of stuff, I'm pretty much expecting the worst when it comes to the weather and to the field conditions on Sunday. So I'm going to go with the 21-17 performance, kind of going against the opposite. Robert, good to hear from you. Hope you're relying on takeaways again. I'll take it, but it's nice to see the O turn up big time again. You would love the offense to kind of get it going, but at this point, you just got to stack wins, right? That's pretty much the only thing. You got to learn how to win, like I've said in previous podcasts. And once you do that, then you can turn your attention to going to Baltimore and trying to figure out how to stop Lamar Jackson and the Ravens.
Yeah. Get the W. That's it. Like you said, you got to stack them, and you can't be looking back at the end of the year or on the final month and saying we're going to need to win 3 or 4 here. Oh, that dang Saints game. That would not be good.
All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us on the live stream. That's everything that we've got for this Friday afternoon. Hopefully this was a good start to your weekend. Thanks to all the comments on the live stream. If you like what you hear, make sure you give us a like. That's the best way to support the live stream and help it grow. If you're listening on the podcast and want to be part of the conversation, make sure you check out our social medias. I'm at Dwojak94. Joe is at Joe Aguilar 64, and obviously we're at Bears Insider on all our social medias. Make sure you check us out. We like to do every Monday and Friday, but sometimes we have to move things around because of our schedules, and we want to obviously have you guys be part of the conversation. Make sure you check out Joe's work tonight. He'll be having your Friday night coverage as they are in week number 8 of the high school football season. So playoff berths on the line. So make sure you're following Joe tonight, and make sure you're following me this weekend. I'll be at Soldier Field on Sunday. First time the Bears are back at Soldier for pretty much a month. So it'll be good to get back to Soldier Field and get some home cooking and see what the Bears are able to do. But for Joe and I, thanks so much for joining us this Friday afternoon. Hope everyone has a good weekend. Enjoy the game on Sunday, and we will talk to you folks on Monday morning.